They said my greatest professional accomplishment was team building. But what they don't know is that the team we built wasn't for solving code problems. It was for fighting a man who believed intimidation and lies could cover up a history of abuse. I learned the hard way that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a fake smile and wields the corporate structure like a weapon, and it takes more than perfect code to survive it. The hiring manager leans forward, smiling. "So, Renee," she says, "what would you say is your greatest professional accomplishment?" I smile back, but my mind isn't in this bright conference room anymore. It's back at PulseLink Systems, in that cramped break room with the flickering fluorescent light. Back when I learned that sometimes the system doesn't fix itself. Sometimes you have to rewrite the entire code. Team building, I tell her. I'm really good at bringing people together to solve problems. She nods, making notes. She has no idea what I actually mean. It started with an email. They always do, don't they? Subject line, urgent, HR meeting notice. I remember staring at my screen, coffee going cold in my hand. The message was 3 lines long. Cold, clinical, vague. You are under investigation for a serious incident. Details will be discussed in person. Report to HR Monday at 9 a.m. That was it. No explanation. No date of the supposed incident. No hint of what I'd allegedly done wrong. I had no idea that email would change everything. I read it 5 times, my heart hammering against my ribs. Investigation? What incident? I'd been at PulseLink for 3 years, writing code, meeting deadlines, keeping my head down. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't reckless either. My hands shook as I forwarded the email to my personal account. Something felt wrong. This wasn't how investigations worked. This was intimidation dressed up in corporate language. The sender was Dorian Vale, our new director of operations. He joined PulseLink 6 months earlier, and the temperature in the office had dropped the day he arrived. He had this way of looking at you like you were an algorithm that didn't quite compute. Cold eyes. Fake smile. I tried to focus on work, but every notification made me flinch. Then at 4:30, another email arrived. Subject, final warning. My stomach dropped. Final warning? I hadn't even been to the first meeting yet. This is your last opportunity to address this matter professionally. Failure to attend will result in immediate disciplinary action. I printed both emails, hands trembling. Something was very, very wrong. That weekend, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over every interaction, every project, every email I'd sent in the past year. Nothing explained this. Monday morning, I arrived early. Dorian's office light was already on. I knocked. "Come in." He didn't look up from his computer. "Renee," he said flatly, "take a seat." I stayed standing. "I'd like to know what this investigation is about." Now he looked at me. That cold smile. "All in good time. I need context first. Walk me through your activities over the past 3 months." "Which activities?" "All of them." "That's not how this works," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "If there's an accusation, I have a right to know what it is. I also have a right to union representation." His jaw tightened. "This is an informal conversation, Renee. No need to make it complicated." "Then there's no need for me to be here." I walked out before he could respond. My legs were shaking, but I'd made my point. In the hallway, I nearly collided with Tasha from QA. "Renee," she whispered, glancing around. "You got one too?" I froze. "What?" "The email. From Dorian, investigation notice." My blood ran cold. "When?" "Friday, same as you, I think." By lunch, we'd found 2 more. Priya from front-end development, Angela from database architecture. 4 women, 4 identical emails, all sent within minutes of each other on Friday afternoon. We met in the break room, voices low. Tasha pulled up her email on her phone. The wording was exactly the same as mine. So was Priya's. So was Angela's. "None of us work the same shifts," Angela said. "I barely even see you guys most weeks. And none of us have done anything wrong." Priya added, her voice cracking. "I've checked everything. My code reviews are clean. My tickets are closed. What could we possibly be investigated for?" We sat in silence, the truth settling over us like frost. This wasn't about performance. This wasn't about mistakes. This was a pattern. "He's trying to scare us," Tasha said quietly. "Make us panic. Make us vulnerable." I thought about Dorian's face when I'd refused to play along. The tightness in his jaw, the way he'd said, "No need to make it complicated." "If he wants a meeting," I said slowly, "he's going to get one, just not the kind he's expecting." We called ourselves the Safety Huddle. It started as a joke. Safety huddles were what Dorian made us do every morning, standing in a circle, pretending to care about ergonomic workstations while he critiqued our posture. But the name stuck. We made rules, simple ones. 1. No one meets with Dorian or HR alone. Ever. 2. Everything gets documented. Every email, every conversation, every witness. 3. We stopped being afraid. That last one was harder than it sounded. Tasha created a shared folder. We started uploading screenshots, forwarding emails, logging every interaction. The folder grew fast. Too fast. It turned out we weren't the only ones Dorian had targeted. A junior developer named Marcus told us about the time Dorian had called him slow in front of the entire engineering team, then written him up for unprofessional conduct when Marcus defended himself. An older programmer named Elena described how Dorian had rejected her requests for accommodations for her arthritis, saying she needed to work through the pain like everyone else. Then there was Jamie, one of the few openly queer employees. Dorian had made comments, subtle ones at first, then not so subtle. "Are you sure you're a culture fit here, Jamie?" By the end of the week, our shared folder had 43 documents. Thursday afternoon, Dorian cornered me in the hallway. He stepped close. Too close. I could smell his coffee breath, see the red veins in his eyes. "You're making a mistake, Renee," he said softly. "We can make this easy, or we can make it very difficult. Your choice." I didn't move, didn't blink. Around us, the office had gone quiet. People were watching. "I'll make it easy for you," I said. "Stop sending threatening emails, stop harassing your employees, and back up." He stood there for another 5 seconds, long enough for everyone to see him try to intimidate me. Long enough for everyone to see it didn't work. Then he smiled that cold smile and walked away. By the time I got back to my desk, the story had spread through Slack. 3 people messaged me variations of, "That was badass." But one message stood out. It was from a junior developer named Tyler. Just 4 words, "You're not the first." Tyler met me after work in the parking lot. He was nervous, kept glancing at the building like Dorian might materialize out of thin air. "There was someone before you," he said. "Before any of you. Her name was Carolina. She was a senior engineer, really good. She started asking questions about pay disparities, why men with the same title were making 15% more." What happened? Dorian happened. He was new then, trying to prove himself. He started an investigation into her work, claimed she'd falsified her timesheets. It was bullshit, everyone knew it, but HR backed him up. She was gone within a month. "Where is she now?" Tyler shrugged. "I heard she moved to Seattle. Couldn't get a reference from PulseLink, so finding work was hard." I felt sick. "Did anyone fight for her?" "We didn't know how." He looked at me. "But you do, don't you?" I thought about the safety huddle, about the 43 documents, about the way Dorian's jaw had tightened when I walked out of his office. "Yeah," I said, "I think I do." That night I couldn't sleep. Again, I kept thinking about Carolina, about how easy it had been for them to erase her, about how close we all were to the same fate. Around 2 a.m., I heard the notification ping. Then another. Then 10 more in rapid succession. It was the overnight QA team, the graveyard shift guys who kept PulseLink's systems running while the rest of us slept. Big guys, quiet types, the kind who showed up, did the work, and went home. I'd barely spoken to most of them. But they'd been listening. The messages poured into the safety huddle chat. "Found something. Check your email." I opened my inbox. A file had arrived. Subject, "For Monday." Inside were screenshots. Lots of them. Dorian's public social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They'd gone back years. There were posts, memes about women in tech, jokes about diversity hires, comments under news articles about harassment cases, calling victims attention seekers, political rants filled with slurs I won't repeat here. And then, buried deeper, there were court records. A DUI from 2 years ago, an assault charge from 5 years back, dismissed, but documented, a restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. How had HR not found this? How had he passed a background check? One of the QA guys, a programmer named Hassan, sent another message. "There's more. Legal stuff. Want us to keep digging?" I typed back, "Keep digging." By sunrise, they'd sent me everything. Monday morning felt different. The office buzzed with a strange energy, like everyone knew something was about to break. I arrived at HR at exactly 9 a.m. Tasha, Priya, and Angela waited outside. We'd coordinated this. The safety huddle wasn't just a group chat anymore, it was a strategy. Inside, the HR manager, a woman named Kelly Frost, sat behind her desk, looking tired. She'd been at PulseLink for 15 years, long enough to become part of the furniture. I laid out the first batch of documents. Emails, timestamps, witness statements. All four of us had submitted formal complaints over the weekend. Each one was detailed, sourced, and backed by evidence. Kelly barely glanced at them. "I'll review these," she said, yawning. "But you need to understand, investigations take time. We can't just—" "We're not asking you to rush," I interrupted. "We're asking you to do your job." She looked at me, irritation flickering across her face. "Excuse me?" 4 women received identical threatening emails on the same day. That's not protocol, that's harassment. And if you don't take this seriously, we will. Kelly's expression hardened. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." We walked out. I could feel her staring at our backs, but I didn't care. If she thought we were bluffing, she'd learn soon enough. "Tomorrow," I told the others. Phase 2. Tuesday, the LGBTQ staff stepped forward. Jamie led the group, 5 employees in total. They'd prepared statements, real ones. Not vague complaints, but detailed accounts with dates, times, locations, and witnesses. Dorian had called Jamie confused in a meeting. He'd asked another employee, Nathan, if he was sure about his lifestyle choices. He'd made jokes about pronouns, he'd used slurs, he'd created an environment where queer employees felt unsafe just existing. By noon, HR's small conference room had become a revolving door of complaints. Kelly Frost looked pale, exhausted, overwhelmed. By 3 p.m., word had spread through Slack whispers and water cooler conversations. The complaints weren't private anymore. People were talking. And Wednesday morning, Dorian didn't show up to work. Wednesday was the day we dropped the real bomb. Hassan from the QA team had done more than just dig up social media posts. He'd found inconsistencies in Dorian's employment history. Gaps that didn't make sense. References that led to disconnected phone numbers. My sister, Nicole, a corporate lawyer with a sharp mind and sharper instincts, had reviewed everything. When I called her Sunday night, she'd listened in silence, then said, "Send me everything you have, all of it." She'd worked through the night. Now sitting across from Kelly Frost and 2 other HR representatives, we presented the file. The real file. Dorian's background check had been incomplete. The company he'd claimed to work for before PulseLink, it had gone bankrupt. The reference letters? Forged. The DUI, the assault charge, the restraining order, all conveniently omitted from his application. Kelly went white. The other 2 HR reps exchanged looks. This shouldn't have been missed," Kelly stammered. "But it was," I said. "And while you were ignoring that, he was building a hostile work environment, targeting women, harassing LGBTQ employees, retaliating against anyone who questioned him." One of the reps, an older man named Gordon, cleared his throat. "We'll need time to verify this information." "You've had time," Angela said coldly. 3 years of time. 3 years of complaints you ignored because it was easier than holding leadership accountable. Silence filled the room. "We're not done," I added. "Tomorrow's meeting is about sexual harassment. You'll want to take notes." Thursday broke something. 2 women came forward. I won't name them, they asked me not to, but I'll never forget their faces. The way their hands shook. The way they had to stop mid-sentence to breathe. One of them had emails. Messages from Dorian that crossed every line. Comments about her appearance, requests to meet outside of work, thinly veiled threats when she refused. The other had witnesses. 3 people who'd seen Dorian corner her in the server room, standing too close, blocking the door. I sat beside them like a silent bodyguard. Tasha sat on the other side. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Our presence said everything. By the end of the day, Kelly asked for a short break to consult with leadership. We gave them until Friday. Friday morning, Dorian's office was dark. A small handwritten sign taped to his door, "Out of office, personal leave." By lunch, the sign was gone. So was his nameplate. So were the framed photos from his desk. The overnight QA team had watched the whole thing. Hassan sent me a photo, Dorian's nameplate sitting on my desk with a sticky note attached. "Victory pending." I smiled, but I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because PulseLink systems had a way of surviving scandals, of quietly shuffling problems around instead of solving them. and I wasn't naive enough to think Dorian's exit meant the war was over. Monday morning, we were summoned to the large conference room. All of us. The entire engineering department, plus QA, plus support staff. The chief operating officer stood at the front. Beside him, the chief nursing officer. PulseLink made medical software and healthcare was our primary market. Kelly Frost sat in the corner, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Effective immediately, the COO said, Dorian Vale is no longer employed by PulseLink Systems. The room stayed silent. No one clapped. No one cheered. We'd earned this, but it didn't feel like victory yet. Additionally, he continued, Kip Moran and Dr. Stephen Marks have been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. Now people reacted. Whispers rippled through the room. Kip was Dorian's direct supervisor, the VP who'd hired him. Dr. Marks was the chief medical officer, the one who'd dismissed complaints as interpersonal conflicts. They'd protected Dorian, and now they were paying for it. But the rot went deeper than 3 men. Over the next week, stories poured out like water from a broken dam. The safety huddle folder exploded. People who'd been silent for years finally spoke. A Slack channel appeared overnight. PulseLink Truth. Anonymous at first, then less so. Screenshots of emails, stories of retaliation, evidence of systematic discrimination. HR tried to shut it down. They couldn't. It had spread too far, too fast. For the first time in years, people weren't afraid. And then just when it felt like maybe things would actually change, the email arrived. Confidential, new department manager announcement. My stomach sank before I even opened it. His name was Gerald Pacheco. The announcement painted him as a visionary. Extensive leadership experience in high-pressure environments. Proven track record of organizational transformation. I Googled him. The first result was a lawsuit. Sexual harassment. Filed by 3 women at his previous company. Settled out of court, buried under NDAs. The second result was a blog post from a former employee describing a toxic work environment, retaliation, and a culture of fear. I stared at my screen, numb. They'd done it again. They'd replaced one monster with another. I think I've done enough here, I told Tasha that night. She didn't argue. My exit interview was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Kelly Frost had been replaced by an external consultant, a woman named Diane, who wore expensive suits and spoke in corporate buzzwords. We'd like to offer you a new position, Diane said, sliding a folder across the table. Senior engineer, 20% raise, reporting directly to the CTO. A fresh start, Renee. I didn't open the folder. Why would I want a fresh start in a place that keeps making the same mistakes? Diane's smile didn't waver. We're committed to change. You hired Gerald Pacheco. The smile flickered. Mr. Pacheco comes highly recommended. He comes with a harassment lawsuit and 3 NDAs. Those allegations were never proven. They were never investigated, I corrected. There's a difference. I stood up. I'm done. With this company. With this industry's habit of protecting predators and punishing the people who speak up. I'm done. What will you do? Diane asked, genuine curiosity breaking through her professional mask. Something better. I walked out and never looked back. That night, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Independent workplace investigator, specializing in hostile work environments, harassment documentation, and employee advocacy. Within a week, I had 5 inquiries. Within a month, 10. People needed help. People like me. People who'd been gaslit, threatened, and silenced. People who didn't know how to fight back. I did. And I was going to teach them. Meanwhile, PulseLink was imploding. A tech blog picked up the story. Someone had leaked internal documents, including the complaints we'd filed and the evidence we'd gathered. The article went viral. PulseLink's stock dropped 12% in 2 days. Former employees flooded the comments with their own stories. The pattern was undeniable. HR's entire department resigned within a month. Kip's NDA leaked. Dr. Marks quietly retired. Gerald Pacheco lasted 6 weeks before pursuing other opportunities. The company survived, but barely, and everyone knew why it had nearly fallen apart. 6 months later, I got an email from a podcast producer. We're doing an episode on workplace revenge. Your story came up. Would you be willing to talk? I said yes. The episode aired under a pseudonym at first. I wasn't ready to attach my full name yet, but the story was mine. Every detail, every document, every strategy, the woman who took down her bosses. It went viral. The comments section became a confessional. Thousands of people sharing their own stories of toxic workplaces, abusive managers, and corrupt HR departments. People who'd felt alone, voiceless. They weren't alone anymore. The podcast host, a woman named Adrienne, emailed me a month later. A publisher reached out. They want to know if you'd be interested in writing a book. I stared at the message for a long time. A book. My story. In print. The idea terrified me and thrilled me. I said yes. I wrote late into the night, every night for 6 months. The words poured out like they'd been waiting years to escape. The working title was The Bug Report, How I Debugged a Toxic Workplace. Each chapter opened with a real email from Dorian. Cold, threatening, evidence. I wove in the stories of the others, the safety huddle, the overnight QA team, the people who'd been silenced before me. I changed names, but I kept the truth. This wasn't just my story, it was theirs too. Halfway through writing, I got a notification, a message on LinkedIn, from Dr. Stephen Marks. The message was long, apologetic, self-pitying. Renee, I know I failed you. I failed a lot of people. We were under enormous pressure, investors, deadlines, the board. I made mistakes. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I typed my response. Pressure doesn't make monsters, Dr. Marks. Choice does. You chose to ignore complaints. You chose to protect Dorian. You chose your career over our safety. I hope that pressure was worth it. I hit send, then blocked him. That night, I finished the manuscript. The book launched 4 months later. The pre-sale page hit #1 in the workplace drama category within a week. The reviews poured in. 5 stars, 4 stars. Long emotional testimonials from people who'd lived similar nightmares. Adrienne interviewed me again, this time for a follow-up episode. We talked about healing, about rebuilding, about what comes after revenge. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it? I thought about Carolina, the engineer who'd been erased, about the safety huddle, about the overnight team, about every person who'd found the courage to speak up because we'd gone first. No, I said. Not even a little. And now I'm here, in this bright conference room, smiling at a hiring manager who has no idea what those 2 words, team building, actually mean. Can you give me an example? She asks. I think about the folder with 43 documents, about the Slack channel that wouldn't die, about the night Hassan and his team stayed up hunting receipts, about Tasha and Priya and Angela, about every person who'd been afraid until they realized they weren't alone. At my last company, I say carefully, there was a widespread problem with leadership. It was affecting morale, productivity, and safety. So I brought people together. We identified the problem, gathered evidence, and presented a unified solution to upper management. It took time, but we solved it. She smiles, makes a note. Impressive. Workplace advocacy is so important. I nod. She has no idea, but I do, and so do all the people who fought beside me. That's the real accomplishment. Not taking down Dorian, not exposing PulseLink, not the book or the podcast or the viral story. It's knowing that somewhere out there, someone is reading this and realizing they're not alone. They're not powerless. They're not crazy for thinking the system is broken. And maybe, just maybe, they're learning how to rewrite it. The interview ends. She shakes my hand, promises to be in touch. I walk out into the afternoon sun, pulling out my phone. 3 new messages. 2 from potential clients. 1 from Tasha. Saw your interview got rescheduled. How'd it go? Good, I type back. Told them I'm good at team building. Lol, did you tell them what that actually means? Not yet. Maybe after they hire me. She sends back a laughing emoji and a heart. I get in my car but don't start the engine right away. For a moment, I just sit there watching people walk by, living their lives, fighting their own battles. I think about that first email. Urgent. HR meeting notice. The one that started everything. I think about how scared I was, how small I felt, and I think about how wrong they were to assume I'd stay that way. Because sometimes justice isn't handed down from corporate leadership or HR departments or legal teams. Sometimes you have to build it yourself. Line by line, document by document, person by person. Sometimes the system doesn't fix itself. Sometimes you have to debug it. I start the car and pull out of the parking lot, the sun warm on my face. My laptop bag sits on the passenger seat full of case files, client notes, and half-written chapters for the next book. There's more work to do. There's always more work to do. But for now, in this moment, I let myself feel it. Peace. Hard-won and well-earned. I didn't just survive a toxic system. I rewired it, and I taught others how to do the same.